Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So, continuing my look at Shrapnel albums today with Classic Album Inspection, 35th anniversary of Racer X's Second Heat. So this was one of the few albums of Shrapnel, about the only one I could find the actual release date for. On Wikipedia, it was there according to that. It said it was February the 11th, 1987. So this is a sophomore effort from Racer X. And the main thing with this album is that Bruce Bowie is added on guitar. So I remember back end of '86 there was a feature in Kerrang magazine, New Guitar Masters, on Paul Gilbert, and Bruce Bowie was in the picture with Paul Gilbert. He joined the band. So basically Bruce was studying at GIT. I think he was learning off Paul. Paul Gilbert would come back the next week, and Bruce Bowie had all the had all the licks down. Basically, he could play them back. The guy was practicing monster hours, and Paul Gilbert thought, well, should get him in. Then he can do the harmonies and do some soloing. Obviously, Racer X big Judas Priest fans as well, so it made sense to have twin guitars. On this album, Harry Schlosser, the drummer, I think that's how you pronounce it, apologies if not, he lost his visa, had to go back to Austria, so they got Scott Travis in, who would later on go to fight in Judas Priest, a great heavy metal drummer. So everything goes up a notch on this from Street Lethal. I'll just mention that in this video, we'll actually look at Street Lethal and Extreme Volume Live to cover that. But quite a strange album cover. It's it's quite unmetal for Shrapnel. Cool pictures on the back. So there's a bat front, but you can see the band as Bruce and Paul, Jeff Martin with his sunglasses, John Aldrete. This album, it's got a better sound than Street Lethal. Me personally, I don't think the songs, although there's some better songs, I don't think this is consistent. But I heard Street Lethal first. I didn't hear this till later. I've kind of got into the album as I've gone through life. Basically, at the time when it came out, it was probably a bit shredded out with neoclassical and shrapnel and stuff like that. So, it opens with Sacrifice, which is a good kind of double kick drum track, high tempo. I think the first thing with this is it comes with the harmony guitars. You really come out, the mix really high. And then I'm not sure if it's Bruce or Paul, might be Bruce, does like a cool arpeggio lick. So it's a good opening track, but the second track, Gone Too Far, is better. It's only 2 minutes 56, this track. All the tracks short on this album, it's only 35 minutes long. This is a really catchy track with a really cool Paul kind of melody line, a bit like Into the Night. And it's got a ripping guitar solo. So it's one of that Racer X's best tracks, definitely. The third track needs no introduction. It's one of the best shred instrumentals ever. 2 minutes 41 seconds, Scarified. Obviously people have seen a lot of renditions of this on YouTube, but none of them beat the original. Great, fantastic harmonised guitar playing from Bruce and from Paul and Bruce. I'm guessing Paul's written most of this. And then the solo in the middle is great. And actually, I think Bruce Bowie does a great string skipping lick on this in the middle. Fantastic drumming by Scott Travis, double kick drum stuff, and John Aldrete doing great bass. So really cool. Track 4 is a kind of an attempt at a commercial sort of ballady metal track, Sunlit Nights. I'm not into this. Nice guitar solo, of course. It's only 3 minutes 36. But the album side 1 finished on the original vinyl with Hammer Away, which again is another top Racer X track. Really kind of upbeat sort of chorus, 3 minutes 45. Really cool little kind of harmony fills on this with like harmonics and whammies. That was side 1. Side 2 of the album opened with Heart of a Lion. So this is interesting. This is basically a Rob Halford, Glenn Tipton, KK composition that Priest had around the time of Turbo but didn't use, and it never made it onto the Ram It Down album. I think it would have made a great track for Priest. But it's a really cool track. Jeff Martin, that was the story I was going to say. Jeff Martin sung in a band called Surgical Steel in Phoenix, where Rob Halford lives. And Rob Halford would go down to local bars and check the band out and became friends. And that's how he was actually kind of looking out for them for a bit, trying to get the tape around into the right hands. They were the biggest band in Phoenix, the big local draw. Everyone thought they were going to get big, but it didn't happen. You can actually find some footage of them online, quite well documented. But obviously Halford maybe said, oh, well, we've got this song, it'll be perfect for you guys. Really cool solo. You can hear the sort of quality of the pre-songwriting in this, and the difference between that and someone like Racer X. You got Motorman, kind of like sacrificed this, quite funny, kind of using the superhero imagery that they're fond of. Again, ripping guitar. And then one of my favourite tracks is a cover version, really interesting, it's Bowie's Moon Age Daydream off the Hunky Dory album. So they completely metalise it. Obviously, it's a great track anyway, and it's one of those things that take a leaf out of Priest's book there by taking a track that's not metal at all, like Green Man Alicia or Diamonds and Rust, and metalise it. It's a great job they do of it. It works well, and the guitar solo is one of the best on the album. Again, I'm not sure if it's Bruce or Paul, but they pull off that lovely minor 7-string skipping lick starting on G onto the high E string of the slide that we're all fond of if you play guitar. Awesome. So I love that track, and then it finishes with Living the Hard Way and Lady Killer, and these are two catchy tracks. Living the Hard Way is kind of like Hammer Away, it's got a catchy chorus with a cool solo, and Lady Killer is a kind of little darker, a bit more like Dangerous Love, that kind of track, and he does a kind of cool flat 5 thing in the solo, a little bit lynchy, which is pretty cool. So, you know, a lot of people swear by this album. You know, it is a classic shred album of its time. It's an album you've got to have. I think it was in my Street Lethal, my top 10 Shrapnel albums, if you check that out. But I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. As usual, it suffers from the production issues of Shrapnel, although it's a lot better recorded in Street Lethal. But one of the problems is the guitars have so much high end on them, particularly Paul Gilbert likes a lot of top end. And when that kind of high end is not mixed great or recorded great, it can really kind of attack your eardrums, you know, with those blooming reverbs that they use. But you know, you're only ever one track away from a top track. The guitar works like, you know, Shredtastic. So prior to that, they did do the Street Lethal album. I'll just cover this quickly. This came out very early '86, shitty cover. But this, I think this is the first proper Shrapnel Shred album. I think it was recorded late '85, comes out early '86. If you discount Malmsteen's Steeler, you know, this is the one where, you know, they really have built it around the guitar. It says featuring Paul Gilbert on the front, with Paul Gilbert. It opens with a shred solo spot, Frenzy. And then basically it's got 10 tracks after that. I think what's interesting about this album, that again, the production's lets it down, but I think the songs are kind of better. Again, opens with Street Lethal after Frenzy, 3 minutes and 42. Catchy kind of Priest type of track. And then Into the Night, real Racer X classic. How long's that? That's only 3:35. Blowing Up the Radio, really cool riff on this, 3 minutes 11. Phenomenal solo from Paul on this. And the original side 1 finished with Hotter Than Fire, which is probably the weakest track, one of the weaker tracks on the album, but I quite like it. Interestingly, the next track on The Loose is not one of the best tracks on the album, it's probably the best mixed track. And when I listen to that track, I just think, well, the production on this is pretty good. If we just calm the reverb down on the vocals by 20%, probably 25%, it's got quite a tight sound. And On the Loose is 3 minutes 8. Again, it's short and punchy. They're very good at writing short tracks, the Racer X, that did the job. Probably the best track on it on Loud and Clear is track 7, the real classic 3:43. Again, another ripping solo from Paul. And this got developed really nicely on the live album with Bruce, which we'll come to. Then YRO, Yngwie rip-off, that stands for his cool instrumental with the Black Star groove again, only 3 minutes 14. Really cool neoclassical section in the middle. Dangerous Love, another good track, 3 minutes 14. And again, another standout cut at the end, Getaway, with a really cool riff, again, only 3 minutes 11. And it finishes with a track called Rocket, which isn't as good, it's probably the weakest track on the album. It's quite cool whammies on it from Paul. But I'd say this album, you know, the production's better. It's easily an 8 out of 10 for me. I prefer the songwriting on Street Lethal. But the production's better on Second Heat, and it's probably got more, you know, Paul Gilbert's gone up a level, if that's possible, on the Street Lethal album. So to finish, Racer X basically showcased for a lot of labels in Los Angeles, like a lot of bands. Shame for Jeff Martin, you know, he'd been in this big band in Phoenix, and they went in a band who was a big draw in LA, but they just couldn't get a major deal, which back then we still do, really, but you needed a major deal to basically eat. You know, if you're in an indie level band, you'll get your recording costs covered, but then, you know, you're getting gigs and t-shirt money and so on. But it's very hard to get a wage, a consistent wage, whereas a major label would always basically put money into the band so they could, you know, pay for recording the videos, tour support, but they would pay them a wage, a basic wage, but you would have a wage. And you could just concentrate on your band, you don't have to do a day job. But they did Extreme Volume Live, that one. So I think with this one, I think it was basically kind of, oh, can we get another album out and just do a final thing? And there's actually 3 tracks on this, which are new tracks. How much of this is live? I mean, it's live, but I'm wondering sometimes was some of it recorded in the studio and they've added crowd noise on. I'm not sure. It's tight as hell. When Bruce and Paul do solos, it's pretty amazing, like the articulation and the tightness. But it opens with Loud and Clear and Dangerous to Love, which obviously are 2 of the best cuts off the Street Lethal album. Then this is where the album gets hilarious. Bruce Boulier's solo spot's the 3rd track. And this is a pattern that will carry on. And Bruce Boulier does a great solo spot. I think most people agree that Bruce Boulier's solo spot's superior to Paul's. It's weird in a way because Bruce Boulier needs Paul, not only because it's Paul's band, but he needs Paul's licks and chops to get where he is. But he's got a kind of slightly fatter tone. So it's really cool. Then it did Gone Too Far. Then you get John Aldretti's solo. He's actually called Juan, actually. I've just found out recently, on an accident. But Juan Aldretti's his real name. But John Aldretti's solo, bass solos, who needs him? But anyway, he does bass solo. Then there's a track called She Wants Control. Not very good. Skit Scat Wah. This is another cool instrumental. So it's an instrumental written especially for the live environment. Really cool. Then Into the Night, another classic off Street Lethal. They do some great soloing on this. I think Bruce takes the first part of the solo, so Paul gives that to him, and Paul does the second part with the crazy whammies. Then it's Paul's solo spot, and he uses a real pitch shifter on it, which gives it even more treble. Ridiculous shred. I mean, some of the shredding on this solo, it's like the speed and articulation and aggression is without peer at the time, and that includes Malmsteen. You know, Malmsteen's fucking incredible back then, but you know, if you just want pure, like, aggressive, articulated speed, that's like, how much can I give this? You know, Paul Gilbert, like, this solo spot proves, like, absolutely just awesome. How old is he? 20, 21, 22. Then you got Motorman, then Scott Travis does a solo, and then the finished track will Set the World on Fire, which is okay. I think this album's more interesting because probably the live versions of Street Lethal tracks sound better. Just hearing Bruce and Paul and Bruce, you know, do the stuff together without dropping a beat, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think the reasons Racer X, I kind of digressed. I was talking about the showcase of major labels. I just think they could write commercial tracks, but I think Jeff Martin's voice is really good, but he just hasn't got a commercial metal voice. So that thing, Bruce Dickinson, Jeff Tate, Rob Halford, you know, they've got a timbre to their voices, Ronnie James Dio, where it's got a pleasantness that could reach a bit further. And like Jeff Martin's vocals, not unpleasant, but they're kind of, it's this aggressive power metal singing. It's no surprise really that Paul Gilbert went in a hard rock direction with Mr. Big and got in a kind of R&B type of guy with Eric Martin and changed tack, and it worked. I mean, the second album sold over 1 million copies in America and had a big hit. And obviously it suited Paul Gilbert because he's into poppy stuff. He loves the Beatles and things like that. But when the X came back with technical difficulties and superheroes, pardon me, there wasn't any Bruce Boulier there, but the production was better. I think the writing had come on. But I've got a lot of affection for these albums. You know, it's that time and place where, you know, every other week there's a great new Shrapnel album and you're like, how the hell do I play that? I better get practicing. And that's great. Okay, cheers. Thanks for checking out Second Heat, Racer X, 35 years old today. Obviously a couple of us chucked in there. Thanks very much. Remember, share and subscribe if you enjoy this. Thank you.